Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and excited to have our guy Anthony Schlegel, our
Uh,
humble correspondent, joining us
oh, oh,
from
oh,
Indianapolis. A lot of big news happening yesterday. Some of the Michigan stuff broke, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and pushing that story forward with everything about where the punishments should be and what that should potentially look like. So we'll have all that going on here momentarily, Schlegs, and then also. I want to hear kind of what's going on. I mean, you're there, you're talking, you're a man amongst the people. What's the buzz about the Michigan stuff there? We've got the difference sales going on.
yep.
By the way, we're going to be joined by Austin Ward today. We had to do a little switcheroo because we had AJ yesterday. So Austin's going to be joining us today after this, and he's got some big announcements to come through. So very excited. But go ahead, sir. Give me the full Monty of what it's been like over there in Indy.
So, I mean, honestly, guys, when you come to strength coaches, we're not really talking about the Michigan thing. We get very few days to actually be able just to like breathe, have a cocktail, share stories. We were sharing stories about Mickey Marotti and like all of his other former assistants. Like, we just know, and we all got our own stories and having some cocktails and reminiscing. It's been really good. And then I'm down here, Bob. Like,
You mentioned having cocktails 3 times in a minute on there. So,
I know
someone who told me like, I'm not really going out and hanging out. Then we started talking about
cocktails.
cocktail after cocktail after
Hey
cocktail.
man, this rye bar place down here in Indy had a wide selection of bourbon, and so I had to make sure I got wet my palate a little bit, so to speak.
Wet your pants, maybe.
Yeah, no, I was bumpy this morning on the morning juice, but it's been really good. My whole mission of coming here and everybody like Bob, myself, Dan Ogilvy, we started the difference in 2015. And finally, 10 years later, formed a partnership with somebody to put a force plate strike force on it. And then just talking to all the different strength coaches and how can they utilize that in their facilities. And my goal was I just wanted 10 teams of 5. I got it. Mission accomplished. And then all of a sudden now, like based on like all the notes I got, it's more like 35 teams of 10. And it's like, it's that time where it's like, when do we pump the brakes? Make sure that we got a great product out. But hey, those are good problems to have. And it's just reconnecting. And, I run the armory there that's in Columbus, Ohio. Best practices. I'm looking at other things that we could add, that could add value to our members. So that's kind of like what I'm doing. And nobody here is talking ball. Nobody's talking. We literally are just like professional developing like things that work, that don't work. And so I'm like a sponge. I want to hear what people are doing. And the number one theme, and I hope everybody understands this about strength coaches, is you have to have the mindset that you are there to serve the athlete, and that's your number one thing. And it's not about you, and that's what these individuals are all about. And it's great when we get together and just reemphasize and build up. Like that's what we do. That's what we do.
I mean, so like, how big swinging is Mick in there coming in? I mean, this is his 4th national championship that he's
How
got
about
to
that?
walk in after. Like, does Mick walk in? Like little cock of the walk, his little strut through there.
No, he doesn't, man. His wife Susie's here. It's because they've been in the life of a lot of different people, and for him, it's I was talking to Scott Sinclair. He's the head strength coach at Georgia, and it's amazing. Like, and that's what we try to do on the show, Bob. And you and I have lived it, experienced it. I've
Talked
coached
about
it.
my brother that he's the strongest dude he's ever been around.
Oh yeah, of course, man. George is the best, but it's it's good on good, like the margin of winning. I mean, we talked about the 22 Georgia game. I mean, that's a field goal, good on good. You look at this year and we were actually talking about teams and all the different things that we do to like get our guys to trip and like buy in and through the training, through the leadership, through all these things. And then you look at Ohio State and it clicked after 12 games. And you're like, you go back like, could I have done something different to advance that? And the answer is sometimes they just need to get what they get when they get it. And it's nothing about what you did or sets and reps or leadership or toughness in the training they just had to have that moment where they all came together. And that was, that quote unquote team meeting. And they all made a decision that we're going to be better for each other and it's going to be about one more opportunity to wear the scarlet and gray, and that's what they needed. And they went on the run, and there you go. That's how thin the margins are when it's good on good, and that's kind of what we're talking about. And everybody's trying to chase. We're chasing edges, man. Like we're chasing the 1% of 1%.
It's like he's getting chased right off the screen. It appears like. I mean, so many things that are going on right there. A lot of stuff in his mind. I'm just glad that he was able to join us. I don't know if his
No,
phone
I'm
died.
back. I'm back.
Oh,
I'm back.
okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why that got muted. Somebody called me randomly. Somebody randomly called me. And I was like, no, I'm on the Bobby Carpenter show. Boom, get off. And then it goes to voicemail. I'm back. Keep going, Bob. What questions you got? What other one?
No, I mean, it just with all the stuff happening, with Michigan, maybe we'll have Mr. A-Dub Sports come on here in a couple minutes, and I want to get his opinion on it. All that stuff broke yesterday. He's got a big announcement that's going to be released as well.
Good for him.
Austin and Berman are guys over there, but
tell me about the announcement, Bob. Tell me about the announcement.
No,
Sharon Moore, 2-game suspension whenever he wants it. Jim Harbaugh's already self-suspended himself. The AD's leaving. He's gone. He's somewhere else now.
The president, Santa Ono, is going to Florida.
Konnichiwa, man. He's a Gator, man. Gator chomp, man.
So I'm just curious, like, what does this suspension look like? I know we got in this a little yesterday, but I mean, does this matter to you anymore at this point, Schlegs? Like, does it matter to Buckeye fans, you think?
It matters to Buckeye fans. Here's the thing, like, I talked to a lot of strength coaches from Michigan, and this was not brought up.
Gettleson?
No, Gittleson, he's the man. Like, no, I didn't talk to Gittleson. Sean Lockwood, I believe, is their head strength coach. They got a couple of other guys, Flannery and them that Bob, that were at Northwestern. They're at Michigan now. And I've spilt it with these guys in the weight rooms before, and they do a lot of really good stuff. Ben Herbert was there. He's with the Chargers. We were talking stories about him. But here's the thing. For us, it doesn't. For fans, it does. And I understand why it does. And honestly, for maybe the coaches, because they're not like necessarily in the weeds of like training. Like our focus, we can't be in the past. Our focus has to be on the present and the future, and how do we get our guys developed and ready to go during the summer, ready for fall camp. Like that is our mission, not the other things. I can't control that. I totally understand fans' perspective. And I do believe that a precedent needs to be made and set in regards to this. The thing is, I also don't have all of the information. We don't have all the things that transpired. We have assumptions, and I never like to assume because it makes ass out of you and me. I don't want to assume, but I do know this. If it's as severe as we think it was through all the stuff that came out, then the punishment has to be, accordingly. And nobody can comprise this and say it was anything like Jim Trey. That's so BS on that whole scenario. But if they were cheating and they knew about it and they won a national championship, like things have to happen to say these things can be vacated. You're never going to take away from the guys. That's why I hate it, because of all the other guys that hurt in 2010, right, that season, because the ramification happened, in 11, the ramification happened in 12 when that team, we were talking about that team, Urban Meyer's best coaching job, 100% in my mind, is 2012. If you look at the athletes we had in 2012 versus the athletes that they have now, and they had an opportunity of winning a national championship, they went 12-0, and because of things that none of them did, impacted them to have success on the field and potentially change their life of being a national champion. I hate that for the guys that spill it. I'm always about the guys, and so
you're all about the dude, Schlegs.
I'm the best dude fluffer around, Bob, according to you. So that when I think about what is the punishment that is deserved, I always 100% go back to the players. But there has to be consequences and repercussions for their actions. And what does that look like? I do not know. The best place to do it, hit the pocketbooks, hit the wallet, where they don't share in revenue. They get caps on scholarships. They go from 90 to 75. I don't know. Like there has to be a competitive disadvantage for the competitive advantage that they did have moving forward. That way it doesn't necessarily impact those guys, but it kind of hurts the program and like this is all we got and this is all we can give and this is all we can make. Like that's how, in my opinion, you got to go about it.
All right, Schlegs. Well, I'll leave you with this. Looking forward to seeing you get back here tomorrow. Our guy Joey Veliquez sent me over some of the
I love it.
the all to him IOs. So I got one for me and one for RJ. He's a medium. I don't know if you can jam in that. I'll have to maybe talk to him about getting you a large for all the Buckeyes. We got Austin on deck. You get back in there. Go fluff some of those dudes, pump them with the difference a little bit, see what your force plate pumps are, and measure all that out. And let me talk to our guy, A-Ward Sports, to make sure he's going to fill us in with all the details of everything that's going on in his world.
I love it, man. Hey, appreciate you guys. Go Bucks, beat cancer. See ya.
Quickly as he came, he went, just like the cat in the hat. XSport mouthguards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. XSport mouthguards feature a scientifically tested absorb to help those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. XSport mouthguards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber. They 3D print that bad boy right to your grill. Means more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit xsportguards.com/Bobby and save 15% on your order today. Austin Ward of Fame coming up next. Now, pleased to welcome in my guy, Mr. Austin Ward. Got this in my email inbox yesterday, right around this time. And attention, Columbus, Ohio, the Fan, 10TV Plus have announced a new partnership with Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham, widely known to Buckeye fans as Austin and Berm, to expand their digital Ohio State football coverage. Under the new agreement, Austin and Berm's popular digital content will now be available free on 10TV Plus streaming app and YouTube channels of both the Fan and 10TV. Their programming will be featured under the Austin and Berm brand. Starting today, it will be available video on demand on the 10TV Plus app. And you can access that on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, and other streaming services. Austin, you go on to say how just exciting you are and how exciting it is. Your love for 10 TV and 97.1 The Fan. You've won multiple Sports Writer of the Years, and how Berm has a better tie-in to high school kids than anyone else in the world. So I know we got the Michigan stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
When we talk about doing this, and then this just fortuitously breaks, I want to make sure that everybody who asks me, hey, where can we get some more of Austin and Berm? Are we going to get the Roosters show back? All those great things we love doing together. How excited are you for this?
I'm pumped, Bob. I'm just trying to get like you and make sure that I can get that content out to as many people as possible. It's been a long 5 weeks. If you've been getting a few questions about what's been going on with Austin and Berm and the podcast, imagine how many we've had. And we haven't been able to answer all of them up until now. And some of them we'll never be able to answer. And that's fine too. As you know, man, I have loved every second of covering Ohio State since I got here in 2012. It's taken a bunch of different iterations, ESPN.com, Letterman Row, publishing the rival site, working with the Fan, doing 10 TV Plus. That's the next wave here. I'm excited for that because at every step, what I have tried to do is learn from what we did before and see how we could possibly make it better, whether that's staying in one place or finding somewhere else to adapt and move forward. Sometimes it's by choice. Sometimes it's not. Been fired, laid off from other spots, made some choices on my own. This one, I felt like when the opportunity presented itself, it was not the timing that we thought, but 10 TV, 97.1, my experience working with you, working with Brandon Beam, working with Fish over there, it was like, this feels like a natural fit. And I'm really excited to get back to it. I've been used to for a long time talking about the Buckeyes every single day, and to not do that for 5 weeks has been miserable. So let's do it now.
So how, yeah, I mean, that's a lot right there. So we're going to be able to have that same Austin and Berm content. That's just what the folks want to know. Like, hey, the packaging might be a little bit different, but once we open up that TV dinner, you're telling me that it's going to be the same thing. The Salisbury steak and mashed potatoes are still going to be the same.
Well, I am who I am. I love telling the stories about Ohio State football. My viewpoint on what it takes and how the team should be covered is not going to change moving forward. I want to do it the exact same way. Berm's personality is not going to change. His love for recruiting, his passion. He's been an Ohio State fan since birth. So we've come of it from different perspectives because I started covering college football when I was back home in Wyoming. I was covering the Cowboys for the Casper Star Tribune. I spent some time covering the Tennessee Volunteers before getting here in 2012 when it was like, hey, do you want to cover Tennessee football and deal with that meat grinder and off the field stuff, NCAA violations, or Urban Meyer just got to Columbus. Would you like to move up there? And my wife, lo and behold, many people know, from Columbus, Ohio, brought her home to the folks. And as I said, I've had other opportunities to leave and not cover Ohio State in some of this transition over the last 13 years. This is home to me, Bob. This is the longest that I've ever lived anywhere in my life, if you can believe that. And I don't want to leave. So we've continued to try and find different ways to cover Ohio State, whether that's been having great partnerships with you or Schlegs or Zach Boren, Brad Robinson recently, Tyvis Powell. I mean, some guys now that I've covered that I'm working with professionally, which is a wild thing. But I've been lucky to get to know and spend time around guys like you and Schlegs. And I think that we all see the way Ohio State football should be covered the same way. And that's how it's going to stay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, Austin. Either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that's kind of when you start working with people that covered you, or that now you are covering people that you like watch play and all these different things. And it's kind of crazy because I'm on both ends of that spectrum with working with Rothman and Keels and Lachey and Tim May and guys like that. And now like having Lathan Ransom come through and some of these guys, and seeing guys evolve and get into the media like Zach Bourne and doing some different stuff that I kind of covered and knew as friends prior in college. So it's a wild ride and a wild experience. So we're excited to have you. I'm excited to get back into doing the fun stuff that we all love to enjoy. I'm excited to get back, to Roosters on Monday, because I've gotten to the point where at the beginning it was awesome and I loved it, and then my kids were super excited. But then you have it all the time, and it kind of it gets mundane. And now the excitement's back, and the kids are like, let's go to Roosters. They never asked that because we had it every week. And so once a week for anything is a lot. And so now it's like, let's get back in there, and excited to get that rolling. One of the things that's very exciting, I guess, for some Buckeye fans, Austin, is we saw this come down on Monday night, Tuesday morning, a little bit more started trickling out, starting with the president, Santaono at Michigan, who's now reportedly taking the job down at Florida, which we can get into kind of all the facets of this. I don't know if that's many people in academia. Like if you're a Michigan coach going from Michigan to Florida in football, you could argue that that's maybe better, maybe worse, but whatever.
Yeah.
In academia, I think that would be looked at as trying to get a good landing spot, because Florida's been without a president for about a year. And then also the Sharon Moore, they're going to be meeting with the NCAA. They self-imposed a couple of game suspension for him, the third and fourth game of the year, which happens all the time, I guess. Not the second, but the third and fourth, and potentially other stuff that's coming down. We've been waiting for this for a while, Austin.
Yep.
When you started seeing this stuff leak out, how did that hit you? Do you think there's going to be more? And it took forever, but heck,
Yeah.
It's the world we live in.
I think there has to be more, and I think Michigan expects there to be more. I almost feel like, excuse me, that's the way that they structured this suspension, was like, all right, well, you can backfill weeks 1 and 2, because we're going to start with 3 and 4, and we're hoping, if we're Michigan, that's just 4 games for Sharon Moore. I don't see how they can avoid that, and I don't see how this can be the end of it. I do think that adding in the presidential factor here with Santaono is, like, as you mentioned, a safe landing spot. Everybody seems to have been involved up to the highest level. He was very outspoken, the president of the university, about how nothing was wrong and they weren't going to accept any punishments at the time, and posting, bet tweets and backing Jim Harbaugh and everything like that. It wasn't just as if the football program was involved. It wasn't even just as if the athletic department was involved. It felt like the entire school was invested in getting to the other side of this and protecting the program at the expense, in a lot of ways, of the perception of the entire program. So you've seen many people fleeing Michigan and Ann Arbor, and it wasn't just Jim Harbaugh. Sharon Moore is being pretty well compensated, I think, to be a meat shield for a lot of what's going on here. But as you look forward, Michigan's going to have to pay the price here. They're going to have to pay the toll for that. And I don't think Sharon Moore can do that alone. And, as Schlegs was mentioning earlier on here, what does that involve financially? What does that involve in terms of a postseason ban? I know that there is this perception that, the current players, the ones that weren't involved, shouldn't have to pay the cost for that. But guess what? In this day and age, they don't have to. They're going to be free to go. And I know that this may be difficult for them in June to find a new landing spot. But if you're going to deter a program into the future, retroactive punishments do not work, in my opinion. So vacating wins, paying fines, like the trophy's in the lobby. The gear has already been sold to the fan base. You're not going to accomplish anything. And we saw those games. It's not going to help Ohio State. It's not going to help Ryan Day feel any better if the record books no longer reflect what happened in 2021 or 2022 or 2023. So, I think it does have to be forward looking, and it has to apply to the program as a whole. And if the players don't want to sit that through, part of what Schlake's talked about with 2012, if you're talking about Zach Boren and John Simon and Garrett Goebel and Etienne Sabino, like they chose to stay. And that's part of what made that year so special, knowing that they couldn't win a national championship. So that's on the table. If those guys just truly love Michigan and want to see that through, they can do that. If they're only there to win a national championship and compete for that, well, that may have to wait for a year. And I think that is entirely on the table and justified for Michigan in this situation.
How does this play in? Obviously there was the computer stuff where you had the Justice Department getting involved, federal investigation. I mean, do you see that playing into this situation at all?
I think you have to look at, there's a trident of issues here.
Of issues.
Right? Because you also have the recruiting situation where, that's already applied to some of these coaches. They've already had to take some suspensions and work through that process already. So you have this tag, lack of institutional control. We don't usually see it applied, but if you have like every single area of your program under scrutiny and under fire, that pretty much fits the definition of what the NCAA has described here. And I know that there are jokes about NCAA enforcement and whether that's a real thing, and if you should have to engage in any of that, or if you should comply to anything they ask. But it's the schools themselves that are agreeing to the rules of engagement here. And basically Michigan they've attacked the on-field side, they've attacked the recruiting side, and they've had like actual legal issues with their coaching staff as well. So you can, I think, put those all under one umbrella, which is maybe it becomes difficult, I think, for the NCAA enforcement to look at that and say, well, we're trying to look at this one thing and determine a punishment here. And we're trying to, do this over here with cheeseburgers and recruiting violations over here. But if there are three different matters going on at once, you have to at some point just say there's something wrong at Michigan and then move forward from there.
So you mentioned, is this a lack of institutional control situation? Because you would talk about for a school, and I'm trying to remember who tweeted this out earlier today, and it was very, very interesting to kind of see this come down because they were so Michigan was pushing back so hard on this when all this came down. Hey, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. And Peter Burns, who's a little bit of an SEC troll, he said if Michigan football was so innocent in cheating in 2023, they now have self-imposed suspensions not once but twice.
Right.
And so it seems like, I understand. Bet and Santa Ono saying all those things. This almost seems like an institutional control situation here when you're talking about on the field stuff, multiple coaches, a potential president. Now, is Ward Manuel, did he leave as AD? He's still there, right?
Yeah, they're in the midst of that transition, but he's, still been very active throughout that entire process.
So but they are getting a new AD then as well?
Yeah.
So we're talking like a clean sweep from president, AD, coach. It's a rarity that you see something like that transpire.
Yeah. As you said, when you asked it, Bob, is this a lack of institutional control situation? If this isn't, I don't know what possibly could be. The only time we've seen this thrown around before is like you have repeated violations of the same nature. Oftentimes that was going to be recruiting, and that stuff did not, or, pre-NIL payments to players, things that were against eligibility rules. That's often where you saw that, where it was repeatedly breaking the same rule. And that was a lack of control because it was something that they tolerated. We don't often see situations where it is a bunch of different violations of different rules all happening simultaneously. That's just what seems to be happening here with Michigan. So the NCAA enforcement group, I don't think has had many situations like this because they are often trying to dispense punishments for one specific thing at a time. And everything is suddenly on their desk at the same time. And they don't normally operate in that way. So I think that's why there is so much curiosity about what else is coming in June, because you cannot And I don't think anyone is operating under this notion that Sharon Moore sitting out 2 games that aren't even the first 2 games of the season is enough to satisfy not just the NCAA Enforcement Committee, but then the rest of the Big Ten, the rest of college football. Everybody was impacted by this, most primarily teams in the Big Ten. And you saw the Big Ten step in and handle this situation with Jim Harbaugh at the end of that year. But now you're also seeing Michigan continue to back down and self-imposing punishments. And you don't do that unless you know you did something wrong.
Is this the first time? I mean, because for a long time, Austin, people would do stuff, NCAA would come down, we'll just take them to court.
Yep.
And they'd win in court. It seems like this might be the first time, and maybe it's because there's overwhelming evidence and there's digital stuff and people actually have, videos. This isn't like, hey, you may have given someone money and we think that this is where the money came from. I mean, there is digital documentation of things happening. There's video. No one still answered from Central Michigan who that was on the sidelines with the glasses on. So
what a mystery.
I mean, I think it's just natural. Like the fact that they never produced another option just kind of is the assumption of guilt in that case. Is this the first time that one of these you think hits and like Michigan kind of takes their medicine with this?
I think you have to, based on what we've seen reported publicly. And Bob, you and I have heard many other things, off the record on background, and we're not at liberty to report all that stuff. And we don't know that all of it is true. And I wouldn't pretend like everything I've heard is, but based on what is even out publicly, primarily even a situation like Central Michigan, as you mentioned, the volume of evidence seems hard to overcome. And so if Michigan decided it wanted to take that to court, it would open itself up to a lot more discovery about everything involved in the program. And I find it very difficult to believe that that is a fight that it would want to pursue. So that is why you're seeing, negotiated settlement opportunities, why you're seeing self-imposed punishment. They don't want to take this further. And I think they're just hoping to avoid with the minimum amount of punishment that they can manage, which is fine. I totally understand that part. You should do that. But public perception is not on their side, and I don't think evidence would be either.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We've hammered a lot of the negative, Austin, outside of the little announcement. You've been kind of sheltered away, and so a lot of folks have a lot of questions for you. We're going to get some of the positive Buckeye Talk questions here coming up next. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. Please like, subscribe, leave your comments, questions. We love them all. And back here still with our guy, A-Ward Sports. And Austin, I mean, listen, you said it's been a number of weeks since you've been able to talk and comment and address people on a daily basis with the podcast daily, with the Roosters show, all of the different avenues and mediums that you get out. I mean, what did we think about the conclusion of spring ball for the Buckeyes and kind of where they were coming out of that? And then also kind of the little portal window, making a couple moves in there. And maybe some of the most important things is the moves that they didn't make with having to replace guys who left.
Well, so I've got, 5 weeks of thoughts built up. How much longer do we have? I don't know how long the Bobby Carpenter Show is today, but we could
long
we could
as you want it to be, Austin.
Yeah, it was weird because, and I'm still, writing a little bit practice observations at the Ohio State rival site, and things are changing there as well for more curveballs moving forward in the career. But like just to not have that opportunity to leave Student Appreciation Day or had the coaches clinic is one of my favorite times of the year to just be in the Woody. There's another practice on that Friday morning before the spring game, and then have the spring game itself and see a ton of, football and maybe more live football in April than we expected to see, and to not have a chance to just really get out all those thoughts. It's all backed up a little bit, but I think you start with the quarterback situation, Bob, as always. And I think I tried to keep a more open mind about it. And I didn't do a great job at the start. Like going into, the first week of March, it's like, well, Julian Sayin is this 5-star. He had great practices a year ago. You watch the ball spin out of his hand. Like, I just assume he's going to be the starting quarterback. And once it started, I did a better job of like, all right, well, what's Lincoln Kienholz doing better than he has before? What would it look like for Tavian St. Clair if he could get up to speed in time? Because he looks the part physically. Where can Julian Sayin continue to improve if he's having a little bit of maybe some rougher practices during the open portion of windows that we got to see? And so it was more like comparing Julian Sayin to Julian Sayin and not to Lincoln Kienholz and not, all three of them, like who's winning today. There were days where you just left and you would have to say that Lincoln Kienholz had the better of Julian Sayin. The last day of spring camp in the Horseshoe, Julian Sayin, I think, had the better day. And maybe that was a reminder again for me to say, this is that time when Ryan Day views this as 1 through 15 in the practice, and practice 16 is in August, and then they continue the battle from there. I'm more on board with that today than I ever have been. I think that's exciting because it's not like Ohio State wanted to go find Nico Iamaleava and bring him in after camp. They know what these guys are capable of. They believe in them all. I do think, it is a 2-horse race, and that Tavian St. Clair is not going to be actively involved in the starting competition in August. I think that part has been settled, and it's not a surprise for a true freshman. But there are things about both of their games that you can really like. Julian Sayin, again, with the accuracy and processing, he seems to have that pure arm talent that you want. And Lincoln Kienholz is that dual threat, sort of, moving out of the pocket, extending plays and running that I think people wanted to see maybe from Devin Brown in the past. Will Howard could do some of that with his size and strength a year ago. But so they're different guys. And I think there is this just, acknowledgement that Ohio State's probably going to need both of them in some capacity this year, which would be different than how Ryan Day has managed the position in the past.
So you're not a believer that one of those guys, and you were saying this for a long time, and I mean, I guess you can just dip out and not play and then get in the portal at any point in time. But you were very adamant, when we would talk at Roosters, that, hey, regardless of what happens in the spring, like Lincoln Kienholz is going to be there. I think that was the assumption of a lot of people, that they thought ultimately that Julian Sayin was just going to win that starting job. And it was a foregone conclusion, which, like you said, you saw some of it. I saw a lot. And I tried to tell people, I'm like, Lincoln has looked as good or not, if not better, on many of the days.
Yeah.
So you think that he'll be here regardless of whoever Ryan names, most likely on that Wednesday or Thursday, announces that this guy is going to be starting, that the other guy will be there through the remainder of the season?
That's my expectation. And again, in today's era of college football, like, you say something like that and you hold your breath. You mean you don't want to make, adamant guarantees or rock solid predictions, because things can change and people can drop money out of the sky at any time. But I felt like Lincoln Kienholz, and this is an all-consuming conversation. Ryan Day and Billy Fessler and Brian Hartline, they all have to have these same conversations with the quarterback. Here's where we see you. Here's what this battle is going to look like. And there has to be a trust going both ways, from the coaching staff to the player. And then you involve the school and the collectives and all that. You have conversations about what that means financially. I think that Lincoln Kienholz had an opportunity that he believed in competitively on the field. He had a 12-month opportunity to sign a contract with the school. And I know that all this stuff is foreign and new, and it's not the most fun way to talk about college football. But I believe that he bought into that, Lincoln Kienholz specifically. And that has to go for Julian Sayin as well. Everyone has to be on the same page about what that means. But I didn't think that he was making a 4-month decision and he has to win the job by April 15th or April 12th, whenever day the spring game was, because Ohio State was going to spend money on a backup quarterback anyway. It can be Lincoln Kienholz, and he can continue that development with Ryan Day and Billy Fessler and Brian Hartline, as I mentioned, and have these weapons available and step in as a backup or win the starting job in training camp. Like, that's all on the table for you. And if you don't want it, well, this some X amount of dollars in this roster spot and that same opportunity would go to somebody else. And I think Lincoln Kienholz really wanted it, and I think Ohio State really wanted him to have it.
Yeah, it seems like that. And it's been very interesting to see how Ryan has managed this, because every time he's had a quarterback competition, people are like, well, it's just like the last one. It's just like this. I go, man, all of these, as you know, Austin, they're wholly unique.
Yeah.
Based upon, where the guys are, if transfers, not transfers, the CJ Stroud into obviously Justin Fields, and just everything that we've seen with all of this has been very, very unique. One last thing before we let you out of here. How do you feel about that internal depth on the defensive line?
I was surprised that the pickup to this point, Bob, was at defensive end. I understand it. If you can add another chip to the table, the roulette wheel, another spin of a talented guy, Bo Atkinson from North Carolina, 7.5 sacks a year ago for the Tar Heels, productive player. If that helps you because you're still betting a little bit on potential with Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, CJ Hicks, Logan George, you do that. And it makes sense. I think Ohio State had been viewed as not taking enough of those aggressive chances. If they could have made a case that they were fine at a position, that they wouldn't add to it, that's no longer really the case. You can see that at defensive end. But I think that they really wanted to add a defensive tackle. I think if you're saying what was number one on the priority list, that had to be it. But they didn't find the fit. And you know better than anybody, Bob, that can be for a number of different reasons, whether that's on-field performance, whether that is culture fit, whether that is finding out some things in the interview process that you may or may not like. I don't know how that applies to every single player that was in the portal, but they haven't added anyone defensive tackle. And that then puts a lot of pressure on Jason Moore, Will Smith, Tywan Malone, because that is a spot where they do need, I think, more bodies, and they're going to need to rotate to the level that Larry Johnson wants to. I'm not sure that they are fully in the spot of comfort at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. And I just don't think that there was the quality of player. And you've heard Ryan talk about this. We're not bringing in a guy just for depth, either A, if they're a bad dude, or B, if we have guys that are better than them already. So what's the purpose of going over there and overpaying for a guy in the spring portal? So I don't know if you feel great about it, but hopefully that continues to mature. And as that situation heads this summer, we'll feel better about that situation. Austin, it was great getting to talk to you, finally catching up, putting you out there in public, making the announcement that was released yesterday, the 10 TV Plus app, and then eventually on YouTube and all the other venues there with the fans. So excited for you and Berm to get back out there and start doing our Rooster shows again here in the future, sir. You have a good day. Tell Miss Liberty I said hello, and excited to get caught up soon.
I will. She's going to be excited to see you all, and I appreciate you having me on, Bob. Great to catch up.
Anytime. That is the great Austin Ward. Now going to be with 10 TV Plus, him and Berm. So excited to get them to join the family. I want to tell you about my friends over at Backer. There's some cool new Ohio State gear, premium gear. It's a premium product. That's BCKR. They've got hats and unbelievable jackets. They want to bring that high quality gear from the fishing, from the hunting, the skiing, the golf, that nice gear. And listen, it's going to have a little bit of an increase on the price tag, but you're going to see it in the quality and the features on the product. Unbelievable. I've had a great experience. Like I said, I've been wearing that. I've got an unbelievable windbreaker. I wore the raincoat to my daughter's lacrosse game. It held up and it was tremendous. So go check it out at backer.com. That's BCKR. A portion of the proceeds at backer.com are going to go back to the Ohio State student athletes. And if you want that expedited shipping, so you can hopefully still get it before Mother's Day, and Father's Day is in June, so you got that as well. All caps, BOBBY. That's Bobby at checkout. We've got our headlines, so stay tuned and locked in here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, we got our headlines brought to you by our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. They're a full-service ad agency, folks. They do it all for you. They're built on trust, strategy, performance. They shield your team from the unwanted outside noise, the cold calls, all the crap you have to do that you don't enjoy. They let you do what you do best, run your business. They handle the rest of it for you. They've got over 100 years of marketing experience. Lake Spur Marketing eliminates waste and delivers on budget. They don't chase clicks. They're going to build those partnerships. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in the partners. We've got our headlines here. We've had this in the hopper for a while. Lee Corso is retiring. And Lee is a legend. Talking a little bit about Lee Corso's stat line and what he is about and what he's been able to do with game day at college football. And we can scroll through some of these different things with what he's done, the picks. And a lot of Brutus heads there, 430 mascot headgear picks all time. And his record, 286 and 144. Now he's picking that heads up, not against the number, but still, that's pretty darn impressive because usually you're picking the biggest game every time. 1999, perfect season. How about that for my guy, Lee? 69 different teams that he has picked all time. And I think he even has 3 teams with multiple picks and no losses with USC, Virginia Tech, and North Dakota State 3-0. And then lastly, who has he picked the most? Well, the first one he ever did was Brutus Buckeye. And so he's done Ohio State the most, Bama the second, LSU, Florida, and Oregon. And a lot of that's the function of, hey, you're one of the best teams. You're one of the biggest games, and Lee wanted to be there for you. And so as I look at this, and hopefully he's got one more headgear pick in him, and he's going to have one more college game day. And it's looking that it's probably going to be in Columbus, Ohio, where it all began with the headgear picks. Take it on Texas. We're hoping that's going to be a night game. But get a chance to see Lee go out there one more time at 89. I think he'll be 90 years old. His birthday, I believe, is in July. So he'll be 90 years old for the start of that, which is absolutely insane with where he's at, and to have a 90-year-old on television, still in a paid occupation working, just to say fond farewell. So Unbelievable. He turns 90. Thanks, Pat, on August 7th. So, yeah, right there in early August, he'll be turning 90. And so good for him. Can't wait to see it, and very, very excited for him to finish that off. Been meaning to get to that for some time, but there's just so much news that keeps coming down the pike. So all that different stuff about Lee, wanted to make sure that we honor him in the correct way. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up, we've got some tailgate talk where we answer your questions. We're going to go back to Monday's show, and there's some comments and questions. And of course, we had the great Lathan Ransom on, so people had some stuff for him, and we'll get back on that and talk about some of your comments and questions here coming up next. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and now it's time for our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. The Jeep out the other day with the winch on it, feeling good and feeling powerful, being able to do anything. Let's go check out realtruck.com. One of the comments, Bobby Sneaker World, 8 safeties being drafted ahead of Lathan Ransom is pure insanity, which I agree. And talking to Lathan, as he's going through that process, how tough it was. Didn't expect to go Thursday. Thought he could maybe go Friday. Goes pretty early on Thursday, top half of that 4th round. But that's the agonizing stuff. And I wanted everybody to understand, like, it's an exciting day, but it's also a stressful day. But you've got your family there, and you try to focus not on the teams that didn't draft you, but on the team that did, and the positive that's going to ultimately come from that. Another was an analysis from Chris saying Lathan and Kurt Coleman, very similar, and 100% agree. I love Kurt, and I got a chance to get to know him. We didn't play together, but through the Buckeye Cruise and just being around. And I told Lathan that when I first met him, I go, you remind me of Kurt Coleman, a little bit bigger. Athletically, they're a little bit similar, but both the guys are very, very intelligent as well. And then finally, the one at the bottom from Schuer, will never forget the look on Cody Simon's face after the dreaded Cotton Bowl loss to Missouri. He was the first to declare he was returning one more year. True Buckeye. Who remembers? Only God. And that was a great one there for Cody, and such an integral part of that coming up. All right, take a quick break right now. Coming up, we'll wrap up the show with some parting thoughts. All right, I want to finish up the show with some parting thoughts here. Excited to have Austin. That was the first time. And there's been a lot of people say, hey, you should do more. You should do stuff with them. And, they're always so busy. And so, my and Schlags. But I was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity. And that announcement came down after we had even planned it. We knew it was kind of in the works and trying to plan through some of these things. But it was the right time. And Austin and Berm do such a great job on the beat. And I know a lot of you guys that watch our show watch their stuff as well. And so I just encourage you to keep doing that. We're going to produce some great content, and we'll be doing our crossovers and some more fun stuff here coming up, because it's a lot of fun for everybody to get involved and to be able to do that. So really excited to be a part of it, and have those guys back here and have them over the 10 TV and on the YouTube, being able to get that done. So stay locked in, stay tuned in here as we finish up a strong week, with Schlage's coming back from the strength coaching convention. So he'll be back in Columbus, and excited to catch up with you on Thursday.